Good afternoon, everybody. So I am here with a friend of mine, Tracey Maxfield, who is a retired nurse of 36 years. She has a rather extensive and impressive career behind her. In August of 2015, though, Tracey endured quite a bit of workplace stress and harassment, which began to build. Behind that was a lot of bullying, and she experienced a depressive episode that led her into what she describes as an abyss of darkness. And through all of the hopelessness that she felt, and then working with her doctor, it was suggested that she begin a blog to kind of help express herself and then help her family and friends to understand what she was going through. And as you know, when things begin, they often snowball into something we didn't really expect. And so from that, Tracey has become an author. And the name of her book is Escaping the Rabbit Hole, My Journey Through Depression. And Tracey is here to share a little bit of how even authoring that book has led into another advocacy for her. And she is traveling around to bring awareness to bullying in the schools and the effect that it has on children's mental wellness. And so I am really excited to welcome Tracey here today and just get to know a little bit more about her and her work. So how are you today, Tracey?
I'm good. Thank you so much for this invitation. I'm looking forward to our chat.
Absolutely. I'm glad you could do this with me. So could you share a little bit more personally of your experience of what happened at work with you?
So I had recently been offered a new position, which transferred me from the community into the hospital. And it was a very stressful nursing position. But at the same time, I had a new manager who was, for want of a better word, a bully. She immediately began with the intimidation and the harassment and the under the table subtle threats that if I didn't do what was expected, I wouldn't make any headway in my career. And initially, for the first couple of years, so the bullying started in about 2011. And at the time, of course, I was married. So I had a default when I could go home. I could just, go blah, 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 and kind of diffuse. But as you know, with life, it doesn't throw you one hurdle. It usually throws you a number of them. And so as this was going on, my marriage broke down. We ended up separating. I moved out into my own place. The workplace stresses actually got worse just because of the type of work we're dealing with, hospitals, just constant busyness. And it's a healthcare problem globally. And I ended up getting more and more, I would say, tasks added to my role, which really were the tasks of my boss. And I'm a 100% person, right? I give 100%, I give 110%. And, I believe in excellence. And so I did the job really, really well. I guess what happened then was that we would have people coming to me instead of going to my boss. Mm-hmm. And even though I could respond and do everything appropriately, there was still that little thing of, that's not your job. Mm-hmm. I think the challenge is that women who work together, unless they're very, very confident and secure in their own abilities, there's a little bit of jealousy and intimidation, and that translates into a personal vendetta, not even a professional, it becomes a personal. And that's what happened. It just continued to escalate into 2014. And by 2015, it was so bad that I realized my mental health was suffering. I had 2 bouts of pneumonia. I was never sick, 2 back-to-back bouts of pneumonia. And I realized, okay, something's got to give. And it just culminated in a meeting that happened on August 20th, 2015, where it was 1.5 hours of not even professional comments. It was a personal character assassination. Mm-hmm. And after the meeting, the union reps that were with me walked out, and they were both of them were like, in all our years, we have never, ever sat through anything like that. And I'd remained very calm. I'd read a book by Carolyn Myss before I'd gone in for the meeting. And she emphasized all the time, do not give them your power. Do not give them your power. And so I had a notebook and I'd written on it, do not give her your power. And I kept looking at that. Mm-hmm. And it was after that meeting, it was the realization of, like, you're doomed. You're doomed. If, you know, what do you do? And I went home and I was crying, and, you know, it's just that sense of what now? Do you think that your whole life has just changed in a heartbeat? And I crashed into bed and I thought, I'll just sleep it, and I'll wake up in the morning and I'll have a clear head and decide what to do next. Except when I woke up in the morning, I'd already gone down the rabbit hole. And so it began a completely different journey that it's silly when I look back. I could see the stars were aligned and it was inevitable. I was going to have a breakdown. Mm-hmm. But you don't think that. And then when it happened, even as a nurse, I didn't think it was depression because of the physical effects I had that accompanied it. Mm-hmm. And yes, it just, as my psychologist said, you have to think that your brain is glass, and someone has just come and they've fractured it into a million pieces. And we've now got to figure how we're going to put those back together again, but they don't go back in the pieces that you would like. Healing takes place differently depending on the areas of the brain that are affected. And as I said, so began my journey.
That's a beautiful analogy. I really like that analogy. I like what your doctor said to you. But because that's it, right? It's a fragile thing, and when it does get shattered, it takes multiple things to put it back together. Not just any one piece. There are multiple pieces to healing.
It is. It's multiple things, and it was over time that I came to that realization, because certainly at the beginning, the antidepressants definitely saved my life, because mm-hmm. I was so completely dark and down there. But after I got to that therapeutic level, it was then, okay, this is bigger than just medications and therapy, both essential, but it's much more. It's a lifestyle and it's the holistic approach. And that's what I started to adopt, you know, the diet, the exercise, the, you know, making sure that there was no, you know, alcohol and distraction, you know, like listening to music and coloring. I colored like crazy, because by coloring, it would start me thinking. But even that, you know, as a nurse, it was like, come on, give me a date. You know, just give me a date on the calendar. In 3 months, 1 week, 2 days, Tracey, you will be cured, right? And he kept saying, Tracey, that it doesn't work like that. Mm-hmm. And I knew that, but I think it was because it was such a savage assault on my brain. Mm-hmm. Bullying is an assault on your brain, on your body. Right. That just even coming to recognize and give yourself permission that something's wrong, and then to start the healing, it's, you know, it's not straightforward. And I think the challenge is, as we know, we're a very medicalized world, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Oh, we'll take a pill. Take a pill. Oh, the right. Antidepressant isn't working. Well, guess what? We're going to give you another pill to enhance the effects of that pill. Yes. And I'm like, no, you know, what happens then? What happens if that pill then doesn't work? Do you then give me another pill and another pill? And my psychologist is very much like, yes, medication has its role, but do not think it's the savior. Right. You know, it's the same with heart disease, right? And blood pressure. You take pills, but guess what? Unless you adjust your diet and like your salt intake and your lifestyle, the pill's only going to be effective for a certain percentage. The rest is up to you. And that's what this journey started to teach me. Mm-hmm. And it was, I think, probably I always journaled, and I'm always the type of person that writes because I'm trying to analyze my feelings. And so I journaled all the way through this.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the turning point for me was when my psychologist and my doctor actually said, have you thought about starting to express gratitude?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what have I got to be thankful for? You know,
Right.
I mean, how? I'm trying to kill myself. I don't see any way out.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, you know, be gratitude for something as simple as you have running water, you have a flushing toilet, you have food on the table. And I'm like, okay. And so I'm almost ashamed to say, for the first couple of weeks, you get into this, you know, you journal in, and then today I expressed gratitude for, oh, I have a nice warm house. I have a car to drive. But it became almost like there was no thought behind it. It was, of course, I have these things,
Right.
and I'm grateful for them, but I was not truly understanding what gratitude was.
Mm-hmm.
And then my pivotal moment, and it was in my book, was walking outside, and winter was coming to an end, and the snow was slowly melting, and there was a purple crocus that had broken its way through the snow. And it was such a startling contrast of this brilliant purple color against the white snow. And I looked at it, and I was there for ages, just staring, thinking, this is beautiful. The color, the intensity. And all of a sudden, you know, when you have that aha moment,
Yes.
it was new life, spring, life goes on, nature. And all of a sudden, I'm standing there, and I actually said to myself, oh my God, gratitude.
Right. So the breakthrough of the flower kind of represented the breakthrough for you too.
Yes.
It was a perfect
Yes.
moment.
And at that point, I truly understood what expressing gratitude is. And it's that mindfulness as well of appreciating the little things that give you moments of joy at that time.
Yes.
And I think that's when I started to change my focus of not looking ahead, will I be over this in months or years? It was, you know what, it's going to take time, but in the meantime, don't get so overwhelmed by the darkness that that's all you see, and you miss the little moments of beauty that are around you and can give you that moment of joy. Because what giving you moments of joy, then you realize that you are human, and if you can feel joy, that you know there's a possibility that there can be more joy.
Yes.
And so that was my pivotal moment, and I deliberately chose to put journal excerpts and gratitude thoughts in my book because I wanted people to see that gratitude and being in the moment is the simple things, right? It's children laughing and playing and giggling so hard that you can't help it, you know, but say, oh my God, that's just awesome. Or puppies or horses. It's just those little things. And I wanted people to understand how the more you start appreciating being in the moment and gratitude, all of a sudden, you're like writing down 20 things you're grateful for on a day. And it does help you move to that place. And everyone who's gone through something similar, they've all said that they got to that moment where they truly understood what mindfulness and being in the moment was. And it changes you. Like the person I was before the rabbit hole is nowhere near the person I am when I emerged from the rabbit hole.
Yes. So let's talk a little bit more about that change, because you wrote this book, and I remember the first time we spoke, you were telling me how you had been invited to a school to basically,
Yes.
like at a job fair, I guess, about being an author. And the kids came around you, and they sat down for the first rotation, and they found out what your book was about. And you found that they weren't asking you questions about being an author.
No.
They were asking you questions about your mental health journey and what it had been like. And they wanted to know that. And so that then opened your mind to a new mission. Is that correct?
Definitely, yes. So my book was released on April 30th, 2018. And my plan was that I was going to go and talk about, you know, how to help those of us who are living with depression and other mental illnesses, and that there is hope. Because in the book I say, I went through this completely on my own. I had no family or anything. And if I can do it, anyone can. But there has to be a commitment with anything. You must want to get better, right? And it's hard going, but if you persevere, it gives you an inner awareness and a strength that you never thought possible.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 weeks after the book release, I'd been invited to an English class at this particular school, and it was to talk about imagery, because I liken my brain to an erupting volcano and things. And the English teacher said that they were struggling. They were 15 years old. They were struggling with using descriptive terms to convey how they felt. And she said, I'd love for you to read excerpts from your book for them to understand how they can look at like a volcano and liken it to how they feel.
Mm-hmm.
And that class never even discussed imagery. It was all about bullying and suicide and mental illness. And like the kids were so articulate and so interested and wanted to know more. And so then 2 weeks later, they invited me back for the career day.
Okay.
Yes, which they called Human Library. And as you said, I was an author, publisher. They sat down at my table. I started talking about the book, and they're all just looking at one another, as kids do, 11 to 15 years old, you know, and they're shuffling around. And I thought, I think I know why they're sitting at my table, but I need to clarify. And so I said, you seem confused. Did you sign up for my table? Because they had to sign up in advance. And they said, yes. And I said, okay, can you tell me why you signed up to sit and talk with me? And then finally, you know, someone plucks up the courage. And one of the girls said, well, we've heard about you. You're the lady that escaped the rabbit hole, and we want to know how you did it. Yeah. And off we went. And it was after like 8 hours, 30-minute classes with a break for lunch. 63 kids came and shared their stories with me. And it was all related to mental illness and emotions and mental health and bullying and suicide. And I thought, oh, there's something wrong with this school. This school's got a problem. This can't be happening anywhere else. But I went home and I cried all the way home because they broke my heart. I mean, two people to this day, 15-year-old girl, absolutely stunningly beautiful, lifted her arm and showed me nothing but cuts and gouges, and then whispered in my ear, I just came home from hospital after my second suicide attempt, 15. And then a 13-year-old boy towards the end of the day who was shuffling around and, you know, was very embarrassed, and he came up and he said, can I talk to you? And I said, of course you can. And he literally fell into my arms, sobbing his heart out, and said, I've been in the rabbit hole 7 years. When will I escape? And he was 13, 7 years.
Yeah.
And those were my pivotal moments. And I thought, they're not even being kids. They're not even allowed to even embrace what being a kid, a teenager is. And then when I got home, I started doing research, and I was like, are you kidding me? The stats, not just for Canada and the USA, but the UK and Australia and just globally. And I thought, this is just horrific. And a doctor friend had phoned and said, how did it go? And I told him, and he said, that's your purpose. And I was like, no, that's not my purpose. I'm doing this. And he goes, no. He said, 63 kids don't come and open up to a complete stranger. Right. That's your purpose. They knew you escaped the rabbit hole. They wanted to know how they could. Right. And it took me about a couple of weeks. And then I suddenly thought, you know what? He's absolutely right. I have to start being the voice
for them.
Because yes, they are talking about it. Yes, they are being very vocal. But what happens is we have a culture where so many adults turn around and say, oh, it's your hormones. Oh, it's the stage. Oh, you're just attention seeking. What do you know? You know, and it's that. And I thought, well, I'm an adult. I've been through it. I've got a big voice. I've got a big mouth. I won't shut up.
You know, and I found that true. One of the things that I absolutely, and I don't think that parents adults in general think about it, but when they say, oh, you don't know stress yet, just wait until you're an adult. These are the easy years for you, and that's something that is said, but we don't realize like what that does to them as far as it discredits them. And they feel like I have nobody to turn to. And so I love that for you. Let's, I know we kind of talked about, tell me a few statistics, like how often does bullying happen in schools? What have you found?
Every 7 seconds.
Every 7 seconds, a child is bullied in schools.
Every 7 seconds, a child is bullied in school. So in the States alone, and this is actually going to go higher because these are year-old statistics. Okay. So at the end of this year, right, they correlate this year's statistics. So on average, 160,000 children skip school daily because they're fearful they will be bullied. 160,000 a day.
That's, as a former educator, that hurts my heart because school should be a safe place. And so that's part of what you're doing now, right? You go into schools and you're educating them on statistics, obviously. And then, go ahead.
Sorry. So what I'm trying to get people to understand is that bullying of today is so very different to when I was in school, even when you were in school. And I'm much older than you, Courtney, but bullying was different. Mm-hmm. Today, because we have social media, we have kids that are being exposed to 2 types of bullying. They'll be bullied at school, and then maybe on the school bus, and even in their community if they're out and about, but they will also go home and be cyberbullied. And so they have this onslaught 24 hours a day. And even though they may have their holidays, and they could be off for 5 weeks, they could be off for 2 weeks for Christmas, the bullying will continue. It doesn't let up. And that's a huge difference. And also what they're subjected to and what, these people can actually do, it goes globally. So it's not that it's kept in the confines of the schoolyard. All of a sudden, people in Australia and Japan will know about little Joe who's being bullied in school in Kansas, and it's that is compounding the problem. But also, I think that we have a new generation of bullies. It's the wolf pack mentality. They travel in groups. And girls especially, female girl bullying has escalated through the roof, because now what they're finding is that there'll be the female at the center of it all, and she'll usually be like the princess or the popular girl, and she will get other girls who are so desperate to be part of her gang because she's so cool and everyone loves her, and she'll get them to do the bullying at her behest. And so you're not dealing with one bully, you're dealing with maybe 6 bullies, and each bully will go and do something different to you, and you can't escape. You can't just run away from the one bully and hide in the washroom. You'll go into the washroom and 2 will follow you in, and then 2 will guard the door. And I think what they don't realize is that the ringleader usually gets away with it because she can actually throw up her hands and say, but I didn't do that. Right? But I didn't do that. They did that. It doesn't matter. The ringleader is still as bad, but we also now have the mentality where we have the bystanders. And what studies have found is that bystanders are actually as damaging or more damaging than the actual bullies. Because what the bystanders do is that if they don't do anything, it sends a clear message to the kid that no one is going to help you. Everyone agrees with what the bully's saying and no one cares. And can you imagine, just imagine how that kid feels. Right, the isolation. And I think the challenge is that schools need to start reinforcing, that bullying is unacceptable, but actually promoting upstanders, be an upstander. Because we know that if someone in that circle who sees the bullying takes place goes and helps the victim and says, that's not right. That's you shouldn't do that. I'm reporting. The bullying de-escalates immediately. And the more people that stand up, the more the bully is going to realize he or she is not getting any kicks from this anymore, because ultimately it comes down to power, intimidation, and control. And schools have got, and even parents have really got to be stepping up and saying, you know what, if you see anyone being bullied, taunted, teased inappropriately, like kids can tease, there's a certain form, but teasing can also escalate to where it's no longer teasing, it's real bullying. And they need to reinforce to their kids and say, you know what, you need to be the better person, and you need to say that's not right, and you need to stop, and I'm going to report. And then you need to go to the person being bullied, and even if you don't like them, say, come with me. It does so much for them. And so what I'm trying to show is that there's not just the bully and the victim, there is a bullying circle. It is a circle. And if we empowered ourselves to stand up and say no, it would immediately start knocking down the behavior of the bullies. But I also want people to realize that the bully needs help as well.
Oh, yes. Right.
There is a reason behind every behavior.
Yes.
100%. And so maybe the bully is being like that because they may be going through horrendous abuse at home. Right? We don't know. So everyone needs help. We can't just say, punish the bully. The bully needs to understand that there is accountability for actions.
Right.
But we also need to help them, because if we don't do that, then whatever pain they're feeling is going to be magnified, and that they're going to go into adulthood as not very nice people. And what we find is that bullies who never received the appropriate help go on to become adult bullies and workplace bullies. And workplace bullying, as you know, has gone to a whole new realm.
Right.
There's always been workplace bullies,
right.
But now it's become so common. And again, it just amazes me. Bullying has a tremendous effect on the brain. As kids, we know that kids who are bullied, actually their brain does not develop normally because of this chronic stress and the inflammation process that sets in. And so their brain does not develop properly. And that's why we're seeing such an increase in suicide. And the fact that we've actually given it a term now, it's called bullycide. How horrific is that? We call it bullycide. It's not suicide, it's called bullycide. We're actually identifying that there is a form of suicide which is related specifically to bullying. And in the workplace, I mean, I was bullied, right? And it's horrendous, because what we're finding is in the workplace, they're actually picking on those who are very intelligent, competent, capable, organized, stand up, give it your everything, credible, good employees. They pick on those because you are triggering a jealousy, an intimidation, a threat, something. And it really is about them. And I know it's very hard when it's focused on you,
right?
But it really is about them and their failures and inadequacies and how they perceive themselves in the world. But they're usually in a higher position,
right?
And so you have that filter effect where they're above you, so they can control so much. You could lose your job, you could lose credibility. You know, other people turn on you because, again, it's that pack mentality. People, I think what hurt me the most from my workplace bullying experience was I'd always stepped up and was very outspoken about protecting the nurses that I had under me. And not, I mean, I oversaw what they did and they reported to me, but I considered them equals. And I said, if you do your job and you believe in it, then I will support you against the hierarchy and what they will say, because you're doing a good thing. And yet when it came down to it and they saw me, right, capable, organized, great work ethic, Tracey, suddenly going off with a terrible nervous breakdown related to workplace bullying, they all then went to join forces with the workplace bully, probably out of fear, out of this imagined fear that it could happen to them. But what happens is then that for me, it was betrayal. It was the ultimate betrayal, because if they had all stood together, they would have outnumbered her, and as a force could have gone even to her boss and said, no, 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 this is what's happening. And they would have been heard. But instead, they jumped ship. And I likened it to a friend. Only three colleagues did not betray me. And I said to them, I imagined myself in a coffin in a wooden box. And she stood there with a hammer and handed everyone a nail and said, go ahead. And everyone just went up and hammered a nail in my coffin, not even beginning to understand what that was doing to me, because the bullying still continued, even though I was not at work, I was off sick. It continued.
Yeah.
You know,
we're down to about 4 minutes. I'm going to post with this your website, because it's an award-winning website now, which I think is awesome. And your book has received amazing reviews worldwide, which I'm so happy for you, because this is a great work that you're doing. I want to share, because I think that some of these people who are going to look at this video are going to be interested in what it is that you do when you come to do your talks, because I know that you've been traveling around the United States to bring awareness to this. And so in about like a minute or two, could you tell us what that looks like? Because I know that you told me you've been talking about some of the things you mentioned at the beginning: lifestyle changes, holistic as far as diet and exercise, doing some coloring and some music, some other things to distract and help you to begin to focus. So what is it that you do when you come to the schools?
So basically what I'm trying to do, my philosophy is engage, educate, empower. So I believe if we can engage teachers, parents, the kids, and then educate them so they know what constitutes bullying. I think you need to understand there's different levels of bullying, there's different types, and what is inappropriate or appropriate behavior. And so I describe that. And then I explain what everyone can do to support not only and empower themselves, but if they see bullying, how to stop it. I talk about the bully. They need to have a little bit better understanding of the bully, and also then what they can do to help the victim. And then after I've discussed that, I actually explain a little bit about the detrimental effects of what repeated bullying does to the brain and how it impacts that child's future. We know that kids that are bullied that don't get help usually turn to drugs and alcohol, join a gang, get involved in crime, develop a mental illness. Right? It's all that. And so I'm trying to explain to them that this is not just turn the other cheek. This is very dangerous. It's very damaging. Kids are dying because of it. And that, there's very simple ways that you can empower your kids. And as a parent, how you can talk to them, how you can engage them, how you can empower them to go to school and stand up to the bully. There are ways that you can, they call it fogging. Right? You can fog a bully with 3 simple statements, and it takes away their thunder.
Yes.
And it's to know that you're not at the mercy of the bully. The bully has the problem. They're picking on you, but if you can take back your power, you absolutely can. And it's given them those tools. And for the parents to understand how they can build their kids up so they can go to school and feel proud that they helped somebody else, or somebody came and said something to them, and they were able to, think to themselves, I am much better than you. You need help. You're not going to bring me down to your level, and, and just walk away from it and be the better person. And so, yes, it takes a lot of work. It really does. But there is a way we can deal with bullies, and we should not have to wait until, like, for example, the 9-year-old who just died in Oregon, but ending life by suicide because of bullying. You shouldn't ever have to get to that point. And it's also empowering the schools to realize, you know what? You have a responsibility. We are entrusting our kids into the school system for 1/3 of their lives. You have a responsibility. You said you would educate them, you would keep them safe. That means dealing with bullying behavior. That also means being alert that if you see someone that is not well or is not managing in class, you need to talk to them because they could be in the throes of something at home. We know abuse is escalating. They could be developing a mental illness. It's your responsibility to try and give our kids the best chance at life possible.
Absolutely. Well, Tracey, I have to tell you, it is an honor. I felt so very excited and blessed when we connected over a year ago now. And so it's an honor to know you. And as a former educator, I taught for 15 years and now a mental health advocate. Just your work, I am so proud of you. I am so proud that you took a situation in your life that was horrific and you're turning it towards good to bring attention to something that needs attention. And so I hope that you will continue to get lots of support as you move across our country, and then I know worldwide that we can do things, as we all begin to do our part and put all the pieces together to save our next generation. So
we have to. We have to.
I really do thank you for what you do, and I thank you for your time today, for coming and talking with me and letting me share with my people.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, dear.